Might help if I unmuted myself. It is January 20th, 2025, and all along those lines. And of course, it is the Trump inauguration as well as MLK Day. So, as a matter of fact, to start off this particular edition of the show, I thought I'd bring on an interview with one of the descendants of Dr. King, talking about that legacy, but also talking about the Trump inauguration. So, I thought I'd play this and then I'd get to some world news, and we'll see if folks will join us as well. But let's check out this particular interview.
US President-elect Donald Trump's return to the White House is just a day away. In a rare historic moment, his inauguration lands on the same day as America's national holiday, commemorating Martin Luther King Jr. Georgie sat down with the youngest daughter of the civil rights leader.
Only 5 years old when her father was assassinated.
Dr. Martin Luther King, the apostle of nonviolence in the civil rights movement, has been shot to death in Memphis, Tennessee.
Dr. Bernice King has dedicated her life to his legacy.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
A legacy that weighs heavier now than ever before, as a symbol of division and a symbol of unity collide.
Dr. Bernice King, as history would have it, Trump's inauguration is actually falling on the national holiday that honours your father. How does that make you feel?
I'm glad that it occurred on the national holiday. Otherwise, it would have been a day full of the inauguration and full of, Donald Trump, whose first 4 years was tumultuous and really frightening for a lot of people. This gives us an opportunity to see the contrast, to experience the contrast, and to really look at who we ought to be as a nation.
Well, who ought we be?
Well, I think we should be a little bit more compassionate and thoughtful about who we are, and we should work together collectively to create a world where everyone can share in the wealth of the world, where people's dignity and worth is respected, and where justice is a reality for all.
I believe that what self-centered men have torn down, men other-centered can build up.
You were just 5 years old when your father died, and I know that I've heard you say it before, the world lost a prophet. Others have called him that as well. But at the heart of it, Martin Luther King was your dad. What was he like as a father?
So he would come in from traveling, and I would run up into his arms, and he'd say, okay, we're going to play the kissing game today. And then each one of us had a spot on his face. My 2 brothers were on either cheek. I was on the forehead. My sister was off to the side of the mouth, and my mother was smack dead in the middle of the mouth. And he called it sugar spots, and I would smack him right in that spot. I just remember him being fun-loving and just a very gentle man. Sometimes he would want to dribble the basketball in the house just to play, and it was as if he was not carrying the cares of the world. When he got with us, it was like his refuge.
Refuge, that's the word, because I feel like from an outsider looking in, there's a lot of Americans who could use their own kind of refuge right now. We always hear about the United States, but it seems more divided than ever. What do you think your father's message would be for your country right now?
I don't always like answering those kind of questions just because he's not here. I always like to just refer people back to his messages because, my father gave us this kind of perspective and view that we live in this large world house in different rooms of the world house with all of our diversity. and we have to find a way to live together.
We must learn to live together as brothers, or we will all perish together as fools.
That's the lesson today. Every day we wake up, we should think about, is what I'm doing helping us to learn how to live together, or is it pulling us further apart? That's the biggest message for me from him.
You talk about Donald Trump's first presidency as being tumultuous. That was the word he used to describe it. What do you think his next presidency will be like?
Who knows? He could surprise us. He could do some things that will be beneficial to the nation. But I like to say, let's not give him too much airtime. Let's realize that the responsibility for moving our nation forward and moving any nation forward is the responsibility of the people to make sure that we are constantly cultivating and protecting our freedom, justice, and democracy, and doing it in the spirit of nonviolence.
It's about relationships, right? And that relationship between Australia and America has always been there. It's always been strong. But what is this that I hear about your relationship to Australia maybe being even deeper on a personal level?
I visited Australia, Sydney to be exact, and something started stinging me, and I got bit by a blue bottle. And I was hitting it and trying to get it. It was wrapped around my ankle, and I was trying to get it off. And when I finally got disconnected from it, a gentleman, an Australian, came over and said, hey, you need to go get in the cold shower quickly because it could be very dangerous. So I was like, oh my God, he saved my life. So an Australian saved my life, and that's why I'm sitting in this chair today doing this interview.
Oh, see, we are always happy to be a little part of your story. Dr. Bernice King, it was really wonderful to chat.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
So interesting, the contrast that the colliding of these two dates provides, and that idea of that message of celebrating other-centred people and joining together as brothers, very different to what Trump represents. And I know there are a lot of people that are pro-Trump, a lot of people that are really fearful of the next 4 months. Exactly, so in the next 4 years. So I guess it all now begins, and we get to see if, for people who think it's concerning, like, is it as bad as they fear? Who knows?
An interview with Bernice King on this particular day from an Australian media source, and all along those lines, I thought I'd play that on King's Holiday and also on the inauguration of Donald J. Trump and all along those lines. So definitely thought I'd get that out. Going to bring a couple of news items up, including Trump's inauguration. Anthony Fauci has responded positively to Joe Biden's pardon, because Biden issued preemptive pardons for Milley, one of the generals, as well as Fauci and Cheney and the January 6th committee members. And of course, Donald Trump's inauguration is going on. There is this whole notion of what's going on with the Israel hostages, there being a hostage exchange, and all along those lines. So a ceasefire takes hold, Gazans return to destroyed homes, and Israel releases 90 Palestinian prisoners as part of a ceasefire deal with Hamas. And 3 Israeli hostages are free after 471 days in captivity. So definitely, I think there's supposed to be some more released as part of this effort, and all along those lines. And Southport killer Axel Rudakabana is referred to prevent terror program several times, and a teen pleads guilty in fatal stabbing at the Taylor Swift themed dance class in England. So that's something else that's going on in the world in that sense. An Indian police volunteer gets life sentence for rape and the murder of a Calcutta junior doctor. So that's something that was going on in India, and unanswered questions remain as far as the Delhi doctor after sentencing in that particular rape and murder case. And of course, the China executes 2, it says, killed at least 43 in a car rampage and stabbing. And that is something that is going on in that part of the world as well. And at least 80 people were killed in Northeast Colombia as peace talks fail. Officials say that more than 80 people killed in Colombia as the truce between rebel groups collapses. So that's something that's going on in Colombia, which is in Latin America. And drone makers are looking to steer clear of China, fearing Beijing's wrath. So that's something that's going on as far as the China-Taiwan situation is going on in that way. And billionaires' wealth surges to unimaginable levels in 2024 as Oxfam is predicting the emergence of the world's first trillionaires. So they're saying we might be on the way to having a trillionaire. As a matter of fact, Elon Musk is on track to become a trillionaire in 2 years. So definitely there's a lot of contrast that people are talking about in terms of finances and all along those lines. And South Korea's impeached president arrested over martial law declaration. So South Korea's Yoon Shun's questioners as supporters face charges over court rampage. So that's definitely something that's going on as well. And definitely it looks like Milei and Farage will attend Trump's inauguration. China will send its vice president, and there is definitely a number of other folks that are attending. I know there's been some pushback for some of the rappers performing, because I think Nelly performed recently and Snoop Dogg had performed as well. So there's definitely some folks that are glad at some of the people that have performed and some that are not pleased. And some folks are asking, who is Itamar Ben-Gvir? He's the far-right minister who resigned from Netanyahu's coalition after that hostage deal and all along those lines. So who knows, he may be deciding to run against Netanyahu. Don't know that for a fact, but it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out and all in that way. And apparently Davos becomes the world's most exclusive watch party. So that's something going on, is Davos races for political drama as the world warms. So as WEF gets underway, the list of world leaders not attending Davos speaks volumes. So we'll see who shows up. I'm thinking that President-elect Trump, who's about to be president any minute now, will not be one of those attending, but we'll find out if I'm right or wrong. And economic grievances are fueling support for hostile actions. Edelman's global survey shows we're on the precipice of a grievance-based society. So global study shows majority of 18 to 34-year-olds support using violence and disinformation to get their message out and all along those lines. So definitely it'll be interesting to see how politics plays out as well. Get to a little bit of U.S. news, and I'll bring in Sasha and Rick Rosner as well. So that said, it looks like folks are just getting ready for that inauguration and all along those lines. So I know some people are glued to their TV, just like they've been glued to their TV watching the Los Angeles fires and all along those lines. And of course, there's a number of efforts to rescue folks that were dealing with that fire and all. And Trump's border czar denounces leak on Chicago immigration raid. It says no decision has been made, so Chicago braces for immigration crackdown and deportations under Trump. And as brutal cold settles across the U.S., the Gulf Coast braces for a rare winter storm. And I know that they're talking about cold weather here in North Carolina for the next 5 days. I think that cold weather is just going to be all over the nation for a while as well. And protests planned in Puget Sound as Trump critics rally. So Trump protesters held a rally in D.C. before the inauguration, and thousands march in Washington days before Trump takes offices. And protesters are also gathering in Nashville to voice their concerns ahead of Trump's inauguration. So definitely looks like Trump has returned to a changed Washington, this time with the full embrace from Republicans, even though there might be some dissenters. And there's some folks that are wondering what Mitch McConnell's votes will say in terms of the support for Tulsi Gabbard and all along those lines. But it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out and what's going on in that sense. So definitely, by the way, Pope Francis is calling Trump's mass deportation plan a disgrace, and Pope Francis invokes a blessing on the U.S. as Trump begins his presidency. So definitely, it looks like things are going to be interesting for the next 4 years. So we'll see how this all goes. Going to bring in Rick Rosner and Sasha Starr. Hey, Rick, they're talking about changing the name back to Mount Tinelli to Mount McKinley, who was a former president. I think that's supposed to be one of the 200.
Yeah, just meaningless noise. It's just meaningless freaking noise.
Even the redeclaring of the Gulf of Mexico, because they're saying that that's going to be the Gulf of America now. So I guess he's going to find this thing that's going to be, instead of the Gulf of Mexico, which is on the map. I guess a lot of map makers will have to change their name.
50 years ago, conservative think tanks figured out that dumb people are more easily herded and made mad and mobilized than other people. And the Republican Party has been herding dumb people since the 70s. And what we're seeing the end result of that. And so, yeah, the dumb people are going to do dumb stuff to win over dumb people. And it's just noise.
Just noise. Hey, Sasha, really quickly, there was I had a question for Sasha. There was a whole ban and an industry that was banned for about a day or two, that being TikTok. But I understand that President Trump is going to give them an extension, and already the closing of TikTok lasted, I think, for about a day and everything. So
hold on 1 second. There was no real ban. Biden said he wouldn't enforce a ban, so TikTok banned itself so they could thank Trump for bringing it back. Sorry, Sasha, go ahead.
Okay.
No, that's exactly right. That's what's happened. And, well, frankly, in a view that TikTok is being used by well over 100 million Americans. Mm-hmm. So anybody who would ban TikTok would infuriate a lot of people because it's very addictive, like many other social services. This one particularly is very addictive. And if you have TikTok and you enjoy it not every day, but every 10 minutes, and all of a sudden it's taken away from you, you hate this person who did that, even if it's Donald Trump, because today's inauguration, it's probably it's an event comparable only to the birth of Jesus Christ, and I don't know what else to compare it to. And all of a sudden, that president is taking away TikTok. It's unthinkable. So he did what he did, and I think he had to do it, whether he wanted it or not. And now we'll see maybe somebody like Donald, what's his name? Not Donald, but Elon Musk. Our beloved Elon Musk, probably he will buy TikTok in addition to his Twitter. And what else he's going to buy? I don't know, probably Zuckerberg will sell him half of Meta, Facebook, and all other companies. So maybe that's what's in place. And don't forget that Trump created his coin, a new coin.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. And it's two coins,
which already went up to supposedly $100 billion in value in a matter of a couple of hours. So Trump may be on his way to surpass Elon Musk, frankly, and it will be very easy because as soon as the Trump's net value will grow, he will make sure that whenever the fallout with Musk will be consumed, that Elon Musk will be cut in half with all his companies and so on. And also, it will be very interesting his upcoming supposedly trip to China, how they will treat the Tesla in China, which most of its production is right there. So we'll see how it will all develop. It's a very interesting situation right now.
Yeah, it sounds like it and everything. Nick, have you gone out and got one of these coins? Because like I said, Melania Trump has got a coin, and of course, Donald Trump has got his coin. So I didn't know if you had gone and invested in one of these Trump coins, as I was reading on a recent post and everything on, I think it was Facebook. Somebody was speculating that maybe the entire Trump family, including Barron, will have a coin in the next week or two. So are you going out to get one of these coins?
No, I'm printing my own. So the thing is, if you want to buy some, Mark, I have some Palavita coins.
The Trump stake is worth in Trump coin is worth, at one point at least, was worth $56 billion. All he has to do is, once a day, sell 1% of his stake, and that's $500 million. And I've learned a new term, which is rugging, which is pulling the rug out from under the suckers. It's similar to pump and dump. You get all your people excited. They buy into the coin. Trump owns 80% of the coins. So all he needs is a bunch of suckers to get excited that they pump up his value. He's now temporarily one of the world's 25 most wealthiest people. But he needs to sell some of his coins without panicking the market to turn that into from fake money into real money. When Melania's coin came out, that somehow knocked the value of Trump's coin down by 40%. I don't know. It's all just garbage.
I got a quick question for Nick.
His sons, they don't have their own coins?
Not as of yet, but
you're talking about, there is a coin called Barron, but I don't think it's Barron's coin. I think somebody else just named it. I don't think it's really Barron Trump's coin.
But they're talking about they might get some. They're speculating that there might be some in that sense. Hey, Rick, I got a quick question for you just because I was watching it yesterday, and it seems like it's going well, and it's actually hosted by one of the sports anchors that's following some of the football games and everything. So I just want to know when, and then I got a question for Nick about the finances and everything. When are you going to be on Hollywood Squares? Because there's a new Hollywood Squares.
I'm not a freaking celebrity. I'm not. I've tried to be a celebrity, but I keep falling short. My chance is just about over. So
well, I was thinking you were just about as good as
I will ever be on Hollywood Squares, and I can't be a contestant. I can't be a contestant on the show because I sued another quiz show. No quiz show wants to have me on and risk me being an a-hole about their rules and stuff.
Well, like I said, you look just about as strong as Triumph. Because Triumph, who's that little puppet, is not that big of a celebrity. And there were some other folks. I mean, Tyra Banks, I would say, is a celebrity. There was a bunch of other names that I wasn't even familiar who they were, including, of course, I do know who RuPaul was. He was on there, and definitely Drew Barrymore and Tiffany Haddish and a number of other folks that were on there, including Kevin Nealon. So there were folks that I think you could be ranked just as high as they do, because there were some what some people would consider has-beens.
What you can do, Rick, you can sell fire insurance to celebrities. They're all buying it now. Fire policies.
Fire policies, that could work, and you could do it for Nick's company and everything. Nick, how close are you to being one of the
doing Pod TV coin?
Pod TV coin, but how close are you to being a trillionaire? Because, like I said, one of the articles I reported with that we will be having a trillionaire class, not a billionaire class, but a trillionaire class. I think they said within the next 2 years, Elon Musk will be the first one, but I'm sure there'll be others that will be joining him and everything. And it looks like a lot of the folks that are very much involved. I understand that the TikTok person is going to be at the inauguration. Jeff Bezos is going to be there. The head of one of the AI companies, Sam Altman, is going to be there.
They showed Trump at church, and walking into the church, and behind him you saw Joe Rogan, Zuckerberg in the background. A lot of these ass-kissing billionaires are going to be there, bending a knee, which makes total financial sense.
Yeah, right. I thought I saw Joseph Goebbels there too. Is he still around?
But all right, so Trump, for his first inauguration, Trump gathered $106 million in contributions to make the inauguration happen. Tens of millions of dollars went missing. Nobody knows what it was spent on. Biden's inauguration still cost a ridiculous $65 million for a bunch of parties and parades and stuff. This time around, Trump has raised, I guess now it's over $200 million. A bunch of that money is going to go, missing, unaccounted for. But if you're a billionaire, Elon Musk's net worth since the election has gone from $200 billion to $450 billion, $250 billion increase in wealth. Of course, he and other billionaires who've seen similar increases should very much give $1 million contributions to Trump. That's like us giving, a $10 contribution.
Yeah, well, he bet on the right horse. If you look at why Elon's so rich, he bet on horses that probably shouldn't have won. I mean, he bet on Tesla. Tesla is a dog bet, really, because all the cars are manufacturing out of Detroit, and no one thought you could manufacture anything outside of Detroit. And then SpaceX. Now, notice he gets government handouts. All the Democrats hand him money because they call it climate change investments. Okay. And they keep talking, and I hate it when Elizabeth Warren goes, are you going to look for investments in affordable housing? It's not an investment. Let's get real. Are you willing to put the US government more in debt? Okay, that's what they should really say, rather than this garbage investments. And I think that's what happened, is that people just got tired of the Democrats talking these lies about investments, when really what they're doing is they're putting your children and grandchildren further in debt for some very dumb reason like climate change.
Nick, speaking further in debt and all along those lines, hold on a second. Speaking of further in debt, one of the articles that came out actually out of the Wall Street Journal, and I'd love to hear Sasha's thoughts around this, is that one of the things that was one of the driving factors was this notion that egg prices would go down. One of our commentators here on the network talked about the prices that he had to pay for groceries and his food and a number of other things. And yes, I don't think I'm misquoting by saying that that's one of the issues that Adam Lambarella brought up regularly and everything. But now they're saying that food prices are going up. Part of this is the bad weather, because we've had this cold weather just about there. Part of this is bird flu and a number of other things. But the prices are not going down, they're going up, which is making things complicated for families, companies, and of course, President-elect, about to be President Trump and everything. So what is our thoughts, and is this something that folks should be concerned about, Sasha? You follow the economy of the U.S. with your investment show, but also your personal investment. So I know you live in Canada, but should this be something that Americans are concerned about this early in the year?
Well, first of all, there are two different angles to look at it. It's one political, one economical. Now, from political point of view, Trump has to take the heads of the companies that raise prices and throw them to jail and keep them there for next 27 years. Now, from economical point of view, the prices are the prices. It's a combination of many factors. It's internal factors. It's external factors. It's the price of gasoline. It's availability of a business to raise prices for its products if it's possible, because any business is concerned about delivering its profits to shareholders. So if there is a possibility to send, for example, a loaf of bread for $2, as it was yesterday, but today you feel that you can raise it to $2.45, and it's gonna go, and people will keep buying it, you must be a criminal not to raise prices if that's your business, and if you figured out that that's a possible situation, you have to do it. So I don't know, from political point of view, I already said my suggestion. Now, from business point of view, we have it. It is what it is, baby.
Yeah, that makes sense. Everything. Hey, Nick, along those
I looked up. I have chicken numbers to. So I mean, so with the bird flu, the U.S. has 300 million egg-laying chickens. 20 million, which is a little under 7%, have been killed by bird flu. So part of the increase is the bird flu.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's what they even gave credit to. Hey, Nick, you moved to Spain. You've been there now for a while and everything. And one of the articles that I saw, because it's not just U.S. that's facing different issues as well, but apparently not in Spain, and I don't know what the prices are in Spain, you can tell me, but the average price in the UK, the average price of properties coming to the market in the UK rose by 1.7% in January, and that's the largest jump in prices at the start of the year since 2020, which would have also been around the start of the pandemic and everything. So we're going to be seeing housing prices going up around the world, including the US?
Well, it depends. I mean, it's all based on supply and demand. What happened in Spain last year, we had 94 million visitors, and 27,000 homes were bought by foreigners in terms of speculation. So there's actually a housing shortage for the Spanish people, not for the rich Americans in UK and people around the world who snap it up. But it's really, a lot of inflation in economics is just basic supply demand. In other words, you just don't have enough supply out there to keep the demand down. And it happens with everything. If you build more houses, the housing prices will come down. But you have to have policies in place to do that. Also, you have to have policies like they don't have in Big Pharma. I don't know if Big Pharma, you see what they're doing. They're raiding the GOP so they can get rid of the caps on insulin. But another way you can get rid of the caps is that you allow people to manufacture it. In other words, just allow the Canadian drug companies to come in, Spanish drug companies, everybody can come in. And then all of a sudden the prices go down because, again, it's supply demand. And there was a very interesting thing on LinkedIn. We broadcast on LinkedIn by a person who is a pharmaceutical salesperson. He goes, whether people will know it or not, 90% of the pharmacy products come from China. Then they move on to India where they're assembled and compounded, and then they're sent to the United States. And what happens is that the fear mongering that, oh, you buy foreign products, they're bad for you, is just a lie. And so the thing is, if you allowed that to happen, the market would dictate these prices coming down and stop having big pharma, which controls a lot of the media. Go look at ABC, NBC, and CBS. Get rid of their monopoly over pharmaceuticals in the United States. Yeah, Rick.
Yeah, I get some of my drugs from India. They're really good drugs. They're fine. I've been taking them for a decade.
You did. You get all your drugs from India because that's what happens. They're manufactured in India. They're just rebranded here in the U.S. So, like I said, 90% of your drugs are coming from China and India anyway. So the branding and the control is basically Big Pharma. If you don't think Big Pharma has big markups, go look who advertised on TV. By the way, David Walker will be joining us today because he's not going to the inauguration. He got kicked out because they moved the inauguration indoors.
They moved it inside and everything like that. They moved it inside. It was too cold for them and everything. Just really quickly, I'm trying to figure out, because before you moved to Spain, Nick, you were in North Carolina and you're talking about Big Pharma, and anybody that knows RTP, and that's actually a kind of a selling point for North Carolina. It's pretty much in my mind, because I know that Pfizer is there, GlaxoSmithKline, and a number of other big pharma companies are actually based in RTP. So if we shut down the big pharma, would that mean that RTP would shut down and North Carolina would have a economic crisis and everything? Because that is one of our big industries. So what is your take on that?
Honestly, I don't know, and I don't care. Because the thing is, if you look at it, why would you want to support an industry who's been gouging the American public for decades? If you looked at it, like when we buy our drugs here, they're enormously cheap here in Spain, and they're just as good. Some of them are even more effective because they allow these drugs here and they ban a lot of American drugs who they think have problems with them. So shutting down this big pharma, ripping people off. Remember, 20% of your GDP, 20% is spent on healthcare in the United States. Spain, it's maybe 5 to 10%. Most countries, 5%. US, 20%. The only thing good about RFK, if there is anything, maybe he'll address the cost issue. He certainly has no background in medicine whatsoever.
He's got no
background in medicine. So they got a good place to go.
So Nick, if I bring in, because I'm willing to go and find them either by email or some of the other sources. So if I bring in the president of Pfizer or the president of GlaxoSmithKline, who is actually, I think our good friend Jacoby may know some of those leaders as well. I understand that you're going to say that same thing directly in their face as opposed to just saying,
Well, one of my clients was the president of Merck Canada. In my younger, more halcyon days, when I was an estate planning attorney, he was one of my estate planning clients. Now he's dead now, but he was president of Merck. But see, we have no affiliation. How many ads do we run on pharmacies, Mark? Zero.
No, none. So we run
Pod TV. We don't really care. We're not beholden to any of these crazy companies in the United States. So yeah, let him defend himself. And here's the traditional defense they use. Well, if we don't make all these enormous profits, we can't reinvest into research and development. Most of the research and development are done by independent companies, and then they buy them if they're successful and they can figure out they can patent them and make money off them. So that's a bunch of garbage. I'd love to have the big pharma people here. I doubt if they'll show up because we've invited even the Heritage Group. Remember them, Mark? The Heritage with Project 2025? Yeah. And they have all declined. By the way, Heritage listens to our show. But let me tell you something. You guys are all chicken if you're not willing to come on Pod TV. Cato actually sent one person one time, and then they backed off. And the reason
to be fair,
we're not beholden to the Heritage.
We're not beholden, but to be fair, we do have a person, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sasha, but we do have a person that is somewhat at least affiliated, if not a part of Heritage. I don't think he's paid by him, but Jonathan Lockwood is a fan of Heritage and doing some work with them and everything.
John may be a fan of it because just like everything, there's a little good sprinkled in with all the garbage. And so the thing
But
is, but
I,
you're not willing to defend your position, then what good are you? Yeah, right.
I'd like to see Heritage come on to talk about a couple things they do that are borderline good. They're not Project 2025. They have the Index of Economic Freedom, which basically ranks all the countries in the world according to how capitalistic they are.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
you know, the U.S. always
to the Heritage Group, right? You know, but see, the thing is, what gets me in was when Heritage Foundation, what I call them, are such wimps. They won't publicly go on and defend their position. Why would anyone listen to a group of wimps? You know, I'm not interested in them. You know, so
they do one more thing I like. They have the Election Fraud Project, and they track the number of cases of documented prosecuted election fraud over the past 40 years. And the numbers are really low. You know, when people say, you know, the Republicans say we have to, you know, bring down the hammer to stop.
Yeah.
When you look at the actual numbers, those are solutions for a problem that basically doesn't exist. So the Heritage Foundation should come on and talk about the results of their study of how much election fraud there actually is.
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
the ones.
I agree. Like I said, some of the stuff they do is correct. I read through like most of the 900 pages of stuff they published, and it was a big talking point by the Democrats how bad it was. A lot of it wasn't bad, and some of it was. It was like anything else. Part of it was bad, part of it's good. You know, but because they're not willing to quote defend their position, I have no respect for them. You know,
we'll have to get them on, and I'll continue to reach out.
I have respect for people who show up and at least show up and are willing to defend their position, rather than ones that hide behind LinkedIn, which is what they're doing right now.
Yeah, speaking of hiding behind, Rick, just really quickly before I get to another question that's been raised by, I guess, maybe Kim or somebody else that's watching on the line and everything like that. I actually thought that I had the game show in one of your moments that I was thinking that I was right, but I was actually thinking of a collection of countries, because one of the questions they asked was whether there was any country that had a W in its name and everything. And the answer, well, you know the answer, but I was thinking that there was, but the country that I was thinking about is actually a collection of countries. It's not one country and everything. Because I was thinking the West Indies. I was thinking the West Indies, but there's West Indies as a collection.
There's made up countries. There's Waziristan.
Well, they said there was none. They said there was none. I don't think that they counted because there was. I don't think they were recognized by the UN.
We did bring up the BRICS countries, trying to replace.
I just see that. You saw that they were not adding Nigeria. I was going to get to that before I got to that. I think that maybe Kim in the background was talking about the TikTok ban, but also the iPhone and a number of other phones that people have can send all the data that is more important to China. So they just discovered data between iPhones and Android is not encrypted, so they can see whatever is sent. Whatever is sent, they can see. So what's your answer to that?
Should we talk about Hamas and Israel and the hostages?
I was going to get to that as well. Yes, okay. Go for it.
Well, Sasha will tell me they've only released. Okay, so they've released 3. They've made a deal to release 30 hostages, but they've only released 3 Israeli hostages so far, and 90 Palestinian prisoners in the exchange. Right? It's always a lopsided deal. For every, prisoner held by the Palestinians, the Israelis have to release a ton of their prisoners.
By the way, that's a good point, Rick. Did a bunch of people in New York come protesting the deal because it's lopsided in favor of Palestine?
Well, those deals are always lopsided.
Okay, I know that, but my question to you, Counselor, did these groups of people show up in New York protesting the lopsided deal that was in favor of Palestine?
There have been protests. I'm sure there have been, but we'll have to look to see where.
Wait a minute. They didn't. So all these Palestinian people, oh, how great Palestine is, doesn't bring forward, and this is what I'm saying, they're a bunch of wimps. They'll protest, but when things go the other direction, they don't protest at all. And that to me is just a wimpy group. What they should do is call out what you just said, Rick, that this is lopsided in favor of Palestine. 90 to 1 is not a good ratio, or 90 to 3. Go on, Rick.
It's always that. But Sasha.
Well, regrettably, Israel, who was wounded on October 7th, 1993. Sorry, 2023. And after achieving enormous success in almost eliminating Hamas and Hezbollah and whoever there it is, on the battlefield, Israel is enormously successful. Nothing can touch it. But in the public opinion, with all these protests and so on, Israel is a loser. They have to agree to this lopsided agreement that while it's almost done, the Hamas is almost done and over with, now they have several weeks. Now the trucks with help are 600 trucks a day are coming now to Palestine and bringing food, which will be, of course, all taken by Hamas. And it's Hamas will be in power. If there will be election in Palestine, Hamas will be in power. There is no doubts about that. So Israel hasn't achieved anything. Okay, they got 3 hostages and they sort of released 90 terrorists and criminals. Wonderful. Is that what Israel was fighting for the last 15 months? This is incredible.
Sasha, is this going to cost Netanyahu? Because you asked about protests. There were protests in Israel because that's actually where the deal was struck at everything along those lines, kind of to put context into what Nick was saying and everything. So there were protests in Israel, thousands, if not more, that were protesting the deal. And apparently Ben Gvir resigned and everything. And like I said earlier, maybe he's going to position himself for a run against Netanyahu. So is this going to spell the end of Netanyahu as a leader, this particular hostage deal? Because it was not overwhelmingly supported in Israel.
I think Netanyahu is done and over with almost any time now. But I think the biggest problem of Israel, the biggest mistake, that they didn't strike back on Hamas with all available forces on October 8th of next day after this atrocities on 7th happened. Because you see, what's happened is maybe it wouldn't be so well prepared action and so on, but if you understand how public opinion works and how you ignite all the social media and you build up public opinion and so on, so while you are preparing meticulously proper military operation, and you're going sort of like this way, in public opinion, the more time you give it to grow, it's going just like that. So as much as Israel prepared the military operation, it's lost hugely in public opinion. And not only Israel, but all Jewish communities around the world, and you know what's really happened. This is the biggest error of Israel and Netanyahu, who was, of course, in charge of everything.
Yeah, just really quickly, what is your feeling? Because there are some people, including some of the MAGA wing, they're asking for a more isolationist view. They don't want America interfering or even actually being involved in things like Israel or Ukraine and stuff like that. You remember that pledge that he would end the war in a day, and I guess that the people are backing off, but they're still saying that he should be able to end it within 100 days and everything along those lines. So what is your thoughts or anybody's thoughts on this panel about this notion of us being more isolationist and not being as involved in political affairs? I mean, I think, Nick, you mentioned earlier that one of the larger African nations and one of the more prosperous African nations has now joined BRICS. So should we be putting some pressure on them not to join BRICS and everything?
Yeah,
So
when you talk about the MAGA wing, you have to realize we have Steve Bannon versus Elon Musk. Mm-hmm. Steve Bannon said, quote, "I'm going to have Elon Musk gone by the inauguration." No, Stephen Bannon is gone, and there is no MAGA wing. It's Donald Trump's wing, and that's the only one that counts. The MAGA people think they're part of Donald Trump's wing, but it doesn't matter what they think. Well, the only thing that matters is what Donald Trump thinks. That's it. So, you know, you just have to wait and see what the Donald does. And no one knows what he's going to do, including himself. He doesn't have a bloody clue. Remember, he said he's going to bring down inflation. And they ask how, I'm just going to bring it down. In other words, that's Donald. He just has no clue. And we'll be talking about him next in the next hour because David Walker got bumped from the inauguration due to they're moving it all indoors. At first, we were going to do a rerun, but he's back on because he didn't contribute $200 million to Donald's reelection campaign. So, by the way, that's how you do it. You just buy influence. This is the old style politics, Mark. I was thinking what we didn't do, making a big mistake. We didn't write hundreds of thousands of dollars of checks to Donald Trump's inauguration campaign. You got to buy your way in to Washington, D.C. And that's what you do. So welcome to Tammany Hall 2, otherwise known as Donald Trump.
I think what we should have done, Nick, is to send him a bunch of NSF checks. And
checks.
Because he screwed so many people with non-payment, even to tradespeople, to just name it. So just a bunch of NSF checks, and actually.
Yeah. Well. I mean, it just shows you where America's moral high ground is. It doesn't have any. It doesn't have a moral high ground. Doesn't have a moral compass. It doesn't have anything to do with morality or anything at all. It's just complete chaos over there. But
let's see a very interesting thing. I think, Mark, but I think you mentioned that Trump is now today. The first thing what he's doing, he's changing the name of Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America.
Yes.
What's interesting about that is that never, ever in his promises during the election campaign, that was an issue. It's never been even mentioned. There were a lot of other things, but one that he's doing as a number one never been even mentioned in this.
How's he going to do it? Is he going to create an executive order?
That's what he's doing. It's an executive order.
Known as the Gulf of America. What are we going to do? Change all our maps?
That's what I was asking. Is what do we do? We have to change the maps and everything.
Well, there are some things that are going on. I'm not sure if they're going to stand muster, and I guess that's one of them.
The next one will be that he will change the name of Canada as 51st state. So he will prepare a new maps when Canada will
be. And Greenland's going to be, I guess, the
Greenland is done deal, yeah, for sure.
And Greenland's going to come join the U.S., and so is Panama. We're going to get the Panama Canal back. Or Franklin will just take over entire Panama. Now, I do believe in that aggressive stance that he's taken. Like I said, we should never give him back Afghanistan. We should have kept it and made it ours. But again, that's how great nations become great, is they take property, they keep it. Look at what Russia's trying to do. But Russia's going to lose that one. It ain't going to happen. So
I'm looking at an article. I'm looking at an article right now that says that Russia is successfully rearming. Does that line up with what you've seen, Sasha?
Yeah, that's a problem with trying to finish the conflict by some kind of a peace agreement. First of all, there is no agreement possible with Russia. Russia doesn't understand even the meaning of the word agreement. There is no such a word in Russia. There is a Russian word dogovor, but it's not the same as agreement at all. Because the Russian meaning of agreement is good as long as both sides abide by the agreement. Now, if one side is changing its mind and no longer, then there is no agreement. So then agreement is really a complete futile proposition. Now, what's happened is no one in the world can guarantee the Ukrainian territory, whatever will be remaining of Ukrainian territory, against Russia. Because not that Russia can fight anybody in the world. No, nobody wants to fight Russia. No, Europe. Although with Europe it's somewhat different from US, because US may say, okay, you know what, let them do whatever they want. I want to get out of it. Okay, I'm busy with Gulf of Mexico, or now Gulf of America. I have Canada, I have Greenland on my plate. I don't need all this garbage. Now, Europe is of different opinion. Europe now actually, very recently, they voiced their resentment of Trump going to Russia and dealing about Ukrainian question alone, they believe that they have to be involved just as much, if not more, than United States. Now, objectively speaking, United States, although supplies Ukraine, at least so far, not regularly, not in a great quantities and qualities, but still it did. But so was NATO, so was the European Union. There were well over 50 countries that contributed to the help of Ukraine. So why Trump alone will take his efforts to Putin, and so far he didn't say even anything what he would agree, what he wouldn't agree, what Putin is not yielding to anything. Whatever he said a while ago, a year ago, or 3 years ago, whatever he wants to do with Ukraine, that's still on a plate. Putin never even yielded anything at all, while Trump is already yielding. Even before the negotiation started, he and his advisors were saying, okay, everybody knows that Crimea is Russian. Who? Everybody. Pats.
Yeah.
So we're an hour away from Trump taking office, right? And then
about an hour away. And by the way, some of the things that he's saying that he's going to deal with, and I'd love to hear both of your thoughts around this. But apparently, we don't know what the speech will be like. Sometimes he goes off into these rambles and everything. But some folks that have gotten hand on his speech and everything, they're saying that he's going to call for a revolution of common sense. So what that means, who knows? But what do you think? Do we need a revolution of common sense? Apparently, it's also going to include the agenda that includes mass deportations, these steep tariffs, and a slashing of the size of the federal government. But apparently, I guess that's going to be the theme: is a revolution of common sense. And some people think that common sense isn't all that common.
All right. So right now, the economy, even though eggs are kind of expensive, the economy overall is good, and it's not common sense to do a bunch of things that will potentially disrupt the economy. In the world, Calvin Coolidge, a president 100 years ago, a Republican president, said the business of America is business. Mm-hmm. And a lot of Trump's measures will disrupt business. And that's not common sense.
I'll tell you that my opinion is that the key question is whether the U.S. Army will support Trump in his deportation efforts. Because without Army, that's simply impossible. Now, Army has a lot of reservations acting against the civil population. So this is probably the most important question, the role of the Army. Without Army, Trump is helpless.
Yeah, we'll see how that rolls and whether he gets that support of the Army and everything. Hey, Rick, I saw this unusual news story that apparently they're saying that this unusual item is worth twice as much as gold, driving a global smuggling frenzy, and it's coming out of Latin America, and it's a prized ingredient. We're talking about the pharmaceutical industry in China's $60 billion traditional medicine industry and everything. But apparently there's a bunch of folks running around Brazil that are attacking cows because they're gathered around the entrails of cows because the gallstones are very much worth a whole bunch of gold and everything. So what have you heard about this? And apparently this is a big crime industry because it's a global smuggling frenzy. So what's going on with this?
I assume that it's quackery. It's traditional medicine. Usually when people like stuff like that, it's because it supposedly helps give you a boner. I don't know what do these gallstones do?
Well, apparently these gallstones are being used in the traditional medicine that is being created out of China. So I got to do some more research and maybe I'll find more about it by next week or tomorrow or the next couple of days.
The deal like traditional medicine where they're doing lunatic stuff like this is just ridiculous because most of the things like stuff that like they kill tigers to turn them into boner medicine. When there's there are like 3 different drugs that give you perfectly good boners. You don't need to kill cows and tigers for stuff that probably doesn't work.
Yeah,
But yeah,
probably doesn't.
people will keep doing it.
Yeah, they keep doing it. By the way, the other light part of I was going to get to and everything that we get ready to wrap up in a few minutes and everything is apparently in your neck of the woods, Los Angeles, there are a bunch of animals that are quite happy and everything because apparently in all that fire and everything, people have had to move to hotels. So apparently the dogs have took over some of LA's priciest hotels, and apparently they made things better because people like to have their animals near them and everything. So apparently, as thousands of people sought shelters, hotels had to figure out how to accommodate those people's dogs, cats, rabbits, and at least one snake. So definitely, I was wondering if you've been hearing about this notion that the animals are getting some more comfort than they were used to, even in their own homes and everything.
So, I mean, I saw the article. I didn't read it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we love our animals here. And I mean, people love animals. Like, that's one thing that unites Americans. MAGAs, liberals, everybody likes pets. You know, so
They definitely love their pets and everything. Well, there was one other event, and that's what I started the news off with and everything. So I'm going to close it with a speech to us, much closer speech, and then we'll wrap up and get to the economy. But this is a conversation between Dr. King and Harry Belafonte, where he talked about the economy and what's going on. And I think it's even pertinent today, even though this was made in 1960. So check this out.
I guess I could use some of this time to get into pleasantries and to talk about many experiences I've had with you, not only here, but in Europe and other places. What do you have in store for us this summer?
That's a good question. Well, I don't know about the summer. I guess I should begin with what we have in store for the spring. I feel that we are in the midst of a most critical period in our nation, and the economic problem is probably the most serious problem confronting the Negro community. And I might say the most serious problem confronting poor people generally. And I don't want to be narrow about this, talking only about the black poor in our country, because I must be concerned about Puerto Ricans who are poor, Mexican Americans, American Indians, and Appalachian whites. And we are confronting a major depression in the poor community. And I think the time has come to bring to bear the power of the direct action, the nonviolent direct action movement, on the basic economic conditions that we face all over the country. Nonviolence has been a tremendous force in grappling with the social problem of legal segregation and the syndrome of deprivation surrounding that system. And of course it has been a major force in grappling with the political problem of the denial of the right to vote. But in winning victories like the Civil Rights Bill of '64 and the Voting Rights Bill of 1965 around the issue of segregation and voting rights, we discovered that these legislative strides did very little to improve the lot of the millions of Negroes in the ghettos of the North and in the nation generally. In other words, it did very little to penetrate the lower depths of Negro deprivation in communities all over.
And one of his implications was that the war on poverty, which I know even Reverend Barber has been talking about bringing back and everything, was something that was an issue in the 60s. We're in 2025, and it's still an issue. So as we go off, what are y'all's thoughts about that? Because he was even implying that it's not something that is facing just the African American community, but it's facing also, like he said, the poor people of Appalachia as well as the Latin American community. He gave two examples. But what's your take as we get ready to get off of here?
Well, wages, middle class wages have been flat over the past 50 years, even as productivity has increased by 200-300%, with all the gains going to the very, very rich. All the COVID wealth, went to the tech billionaires.
Any thoughts on that, Sasha? And then I'll get ready to end us and everything. But yeah, just wanted to end like I began with a salute to MLK. But any thoughts on that?
I think war against poverty is a losing proposition. It's impossible to achieve except by revolutionary means, which means the armed resistance and fighting the existing order. So as long as that's not a go, and of course it's not, and not going to be for many, many years, if ever, so then it's a losing proposition. The richer will become even richer and much richer, and the poor people will remain poor, and the middle class will become part of the poor, and that's where it's all going.
On that note, we're ready to get out of here. I know we'll have some more conversation on these world issues and other things, including the inaugural speech on it tomorrow on the World Edition. Of course, we've got Economics Monday going on in the media show as well. So right now, we're ready to get on out of here.